to the program. Because it's a Friday, Nigeria's entertainment industry gets our attention next. It's a fast growing economy. For some, in fact, I understand it's projected to grow somewhere around $10 billion. Let's explore all of this, plus some of the gossips and fights with someone who is in that space. Shola Bamidele is the CEO, creative director, Loom Rooms. He joins us live on the program. I like that. Loom Rooms.
Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, everybody.
Yeah. So you see your company, for instance, like it's a talent management company. So you identify and then you manage.
Yes, we identify, we harness. We basically, at the moment, we are based in Alimosho, particularly Egbeda. And we put out a call for creatives across everything. It's not just one. It's not just the music.
It's not just music.
It's not just music. It's music. It's movies. It's filmmaking. It's in production. It's voiceover. It's pretty much everything. It's art. It's pretty much everything. Creativity.
All right.
Yes, sir.
I have one dream that someday I'm going to feature in one of your movies.
I claim
that. What's that space like right now? Especially when you look at how the economy is, the inflationary pressures and all of that. What's the space like?
Well, one thing that I've learned from at least just paying attention to all the interviews that you've had so far from there and to Billa is the problem of infrastructure. And it's not just about the buildings, it's about the processes, it's about the documentation, it's about the protection of intellectual properties, it's about pretty much looking out for the young ones, because it's not necessarily the young ones, because I believe everyone is a creative, right? I always say something, I say an Agbero is more accurate than the Google Maps. So like, if we can, honestly,
can't go back that again. An Agbero is more accurate
than the Google Map. Literally, where Google Map will not take you to do that. So it's like literally, how can we now create institutions out of everyone? How is it that we create this feeling of finding joy in what you do? Yeah.
So it's a very huge industry, and you've outlined all of those components under your Loom room, the areas within your jurisdiction. What are the opportunities within this ecosystem for someone who is watching? You could even take music alone and give us, a line item of the opportunities that abound, or movies alone. What are the different jobs within that creative sector?
At the moment, I know that some of my creatives, Lumens is going to be here by tomorrow. I have my videographer, he's now writing music, he's producing. I have an 11-year-old coming for summer coaching, and he has produced like 2 songs. I have, what's it called now? A producer who has produced with like the Marvels and Fave. He's now looking into directing as well. He's looking into storytelling. He's finding craft. So it's pretty much the whole ecosystem, knowing that it is not just one thing. You can be everything. It's just understanding that for us to work, we are at a point where the Italian Renaissance like erupted, so to speak. So every man has to be everything, so to speak, to push the economy.
Yeah. So does government need to help that sector with funds, or is that sector vibrant enough to encourage the aspirations contained in the opportunities that abound in all this ecosystem?
Of course, the government should be heavily involved in terms of protection, right, with the law and whatnot. Take for instance, we have the intellectual property. When we go out, when these talents are being marketed to the world, if you look at music today, I always look at K-pop. They have been able to move their artists or move their creatives to become institutions, not just brands. So we are still struggling with making our celebrities. It's still stuck at that celebrity. How does a company transcend 15 years, a generation after the CEO is dead? That's where we are stuck at.
So the sector in GDP calculation is mopped up in what is called arts, entertainment, and recreation.
Right.
The numbers show that slightly over 30% growth first quarter of 2026, but its contribution to our national GDP is very marginal, 0.5. I brought out these numbers to talk about the fact that on its own, there's an acceleration, but its contribution to GDP is still quite minimal and almost can be ignored. Whether those calculations are accurate or not, we can debate that.
Right.
And we have a minister, I think Minister for Art, Culture, and Tourism now.
And Creative Economy.
Creative Economy, long title. I would like an assessment of that ministry so far, because when the lady came up, there was so many bright ideas, some level of roadmap, some things she did, but I don't know, maybe it's because I don't watch the space too much. I don't see too much progress. What's your assessment?
Basically, what I would say is I spent most of my time in Amsterdam, and a friend of mine is an artist, and I asked him, when I first got there, I said, how is it that you guys have no resources in terms of human or natural resources, and you have this much wealth? And he said something rather. He said, first of all, we know our culture and we study the culture of other people. I feel that is the one thing that is missing with us, the correct interpretation of what our culture means, and then the deliberate knowing of other people's culture in terms of businesses as well. It's not just about creativity. It's about understanding that creatives need to understand corporate structure, and the corporate structure need to be flexible enough to take on and make excuses for the creatives.
Let's work with what I call the Tinubu model. Right. What do I call the Tinubu model of managing our economy? Although it has its costs and benefits, I don't want to go to that deep politics. What he simply did when he came on board was to look at the numbers and say, okay, there's a lot of fiscal pressure on the government. What can we do? It's called in economics optimization. Optimization doesn't mean necessarily you did anything new. You just decided to remove your wage bill and then allow things to have a bit of a breather. Let's assume there's no help coming for the entertainment industry in Nigeria. They've made their points. They built from ground zero to where we are now. We're even factoring them in GDP. But we need to upscale. We need to take it on that level. What should we do?
I think we should start looking at bridging the gaps culturally outside the country, and that's one of the things I'm looking at. I'm bridging the between the Dutch people and Nigerian and Nigerian creatives. I'm looking at a model where the Dutch creatives come learn from Nigerian creatives in Nigeria, and Nigerian creatives go outside to Amsterdam to go learn, because you go to the museums and you see them, they're young ones as young as 5, as 4, being programmed, looking at the museum and say, oh, this was the crown that one president, we told one king in Ghana, and subdued them. So these narratives need to be seen, and we need to start embracing these structures, like what is happening to Badagry. There's so much renovation going on. We don't even 100 years from now we would have no history.
Yeah. Let me just ask you. It looks like every young Nigerian now is a singer. Everybody wants to sing. Right. Want to just have once more. Everybody enters the studios, and are there times when some people come to you and you turn down their talent and say, "No, what? You don't have it." Just because when we hear some things, I'm trying not to mention names. It's like some people just enter the studio, and before in 2 seconds they have cooked music. And it just boom, 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 boom. so are there times when young people come to you and you say, you know what, no, I don't think you have talent for music, go to this direction, or you actually say, you know what, this is not meant for you?
I never do. There's always some gold in someone. There's something inside everyone, and that's one thing I've learned working across media, PR, broadcasting, and at least 7 fields. And for me, there's always something that you can harness. There's something you can fine tune. It could just be, let's maybe production. Like a lot of them, most times you just realize that they have knowledge of notes that you would not. They have knowledge of scores. They have knowledge of samples. They have musical notes. Like
are Nigerian singers?
Not necessarily.
With all due respect,
you're looking at the wrong picture.
Without you, when you see the average singer outside of this country, you either see that they really know music, they play instruments, but ours is like once you have the beats, bam, music is ready. That's what personally I see.
One of the structures.
In fact, I'm trying not to mention his name because it's very much in the news. But I covered an event, a particular anniversary where one of the top stars had to sing. And I tell you what, the usual thing where you play the music at the background, and then they'll start singing and that day the sound messed up. So the guy was just singing off key. I'm not going to make, because it's very clearly in the news, I'm not going to make it. But I was thinking
It was
of
an off-key day, Judges.
And again, you need to understand that even like the greatest of stars have off-key days. It's not just it's not particular to anyone, and Rihanna does sometimes. So even Michael, because you have to dance, and sometimes it might be offbeat or off-key. So it's not a, for these artists that have less access to this infrastructure. In terms of, I was listening to Bamidele speak. She has a great support system. Her mom, a lot of this creatives. Imagine if their parents were able to invest in that creativity and actually send them to, okay, summer coaching, go to a place like Loom, for example, or go here or go here or go to this. Like, but normally everyone that you want to act, we're no way engineering. So all of that narrative, that now look at it. We still have that mentality where you're doing one business, it's working another, everybody wants to replicate it. There's no originality anymore.
So maybe that person was, evolving. You tell us his name, by the way, when we wrap up.
It's in the news currently.
Earlier on, you expressed, let me slot this one in very quickly. You expressed worry that we may have no history anymore if things are going the way they are. But the government, I believe through the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy, is putting in place a national digital platform that will enable Nigerians in diaspora know where all the festivals are, know where all the key entertainment events are, the concerts are. Is that a viable policy approach? And have they, carried all stakeholders along in coming up with this policy?
I feel it is one of many. Right? When I talk about this, like our history, when I go outside the country, I'm very big on architecture. I believe buildings have characters. Like you can look at a building and tell its history and say, oh, this looks like, I was in Malta one and I was like, oh, this looks like Lagos. It looks like it's Aleko. And then I researched and found out about the colonization with the British and whatnot. So you can now find a common ground. Now imagine where there is no, like, what is happening to, there's so much renovation going on. At some point it will be like it's make-believe. So in as much as we're building with digital and going digital, where are the structures, the physical structures that you can see and say, oh wow, this is where my grandmother was coming from, this is where my grandfather was coming from. That is what I mean by knowing your own culture before studying another person's.
Well, we have to leave it here. I wish we could throw in more questions, but we have to go now because there's so many controversies in that your sector. The P-Square brothers still fighting themselves. And for those of you who are talent managers, they say sometimes you guys sign contracts and hide some things. And when the artist now blows, you now remind them that no, see the contract. Well, let's leave it here. Shola Bamidele is the CEO and Creative Director of Loom Rooms. Well done to you, and
God bless you. Thank you very much.
Well, this is the morning brief. Let's take a moment. When we come back, we get to perhaps one of my favorite segments on the show, Trends. We get to see what you are talking about and the videos you're clicking and seeing. We're back in just a moment. Please stay with us.